Hi, we are here with Mackenzie O'Rear, uh, the author of Victorian Nightmares. How are you today?
I am fantastic. How about yourself?
Good, I'm terrific, thank you. Can I call you Mac?
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
Mackenzie's a mouthful.
Thanks. So, tell me a little bit about you. When did you start to write?
Oh, I've been writing ever since I was a kid, but I really didn't start doing it professionally until about 2009 when I just had a really good idea and I started teaching myself.
What was your good idea? I want to hear that.
It was a sitcom idea called Living with You, and it never really went anywhere, at least not at the moment, but I was still very proud of it. And it just infected me, I guess you could say is the word.
Tell me about the environment that you write in.
Oh gosh, well, I live up in the mountains, and that is very conducive of my work. I really have to be here. It's all about coaxing out creativity. You can't force it, and you can't just plop down and say, at least to me, you can't just plop down and say, I'm going to make this. You gotta tease it out. And for me, it's, just the mountains help, the trees help, the seasons help. Fall stimulates me. If I just need to get intense, really in the mood, I just put on Celtic music and I just let it carry me away and while I write.
Tell me a little bit about your friend. You said that her music really lights you up.
Lena, and her band is called Light My Way, so that's very appropriate. If you listen to her music, it makes you feel things. And sometimes if I need to really feel something for a character or just coax out that emotion, her music's kind of perfect for that, if that makes sense.
What kind of music is it?
Progressive rock, I guess I'd call it, maybe alternative rock. She doesn't seem to be very nailed down, but it's very fast-paced, very energetic, and just very, very strong.
You've talked a couple of times about coaxing out your story. How do you do that? What do you mean by that?
For me personally, it's all about kind of getting in that state of madness, having a million voices speaking as the characters. They all have a life going on inside my head, and I'll just coax it out, let the creativity pour out on the page, and if it's a good idea, and I'll know it's a good idea because the story will start to tell itself.
How often do you write?
Every single day. It's kind of like an addiction. I get twitchy if I'm not writing.
How do you work out your writing problems? Like, do you get writer's block? Do you get stuck?
Well, one of my big things that I really help is if I'm having trouble with a scene, I'll stand up and I'll act the whole thing out just by myself, all the characters like a madman. And I'm sure to anyone who sees this I look absolutely insane, but it's so helpful.
Were you an actor?
For a little bit. I worked in the theater for a little bit as an actor. It was a lot of fun.
What drives you crazy?
Woodpeckers. I'm almost envious of Poe and his raven because at least, that bird could give a good conversation.
Do you have any favorite quotes?
I do, actually. Fairy tales are more than true. Not because they teach us that dragons exist, but because they teach us that dragons can be beaten. And I just carry that with me everywhere. It sends goosebumps down my spine. I love it.
Do you feel like you have dragons that need to be beaten?
Everyone does. I get anxiety, I get depression, I get into really horrible funks, but I can't let them win. They can win the battle, but I can't let them win the war if I'm going to do this.
You mentioned fairy tales a lot. How important are they to you?
They are extremely important to me. Not just because that's how I got my real start writing, is writing fairy tales for kids and as plays at the theater I worked at, but there's just something so immortal about them, something so simple and so complicated at the same time, how they just persist through the ages.
So you wrote plays at a local theater?
The Lake Arrowhead Repertory Theater Company.
And tell me a little bit about the plays you wrote.
Well, like I said, I did some adaptations of the fairy tales. We were called the Not-So-Grim Fairy Tales, where I really got to stretch my funny bone. But I think my first real big play there was my own adaptation of Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskerville, which was a monumental undertaking. I think I wrote the first draft in under 2 months, and it was a working draft, and I nearly lost my mind, but I think that actually helps.
Do you have a favorite book?
I have lots of favorite books. Oh my gosh. There's the Sandman Slim novel series by Richard Cadre. I just got very much into Rick Riordan's work with the Percy Jackson series and all that. There's just something, it's just such page turners, and I have no idea how he does it. And ever since I was a kid, I've absolutely loved Goosebumps by R.L. Stine. Like, even to this day, I will read those emphatically. Just, I love them.
What else are you working on?
Oh, I am working on a television series. A series called Sins and Prayers, tentatively called Sins and Prayers, and I'm very proud of it. I'm working with Chuck Mara, and he has been an absolute help. And he's been my partner the whole way through, and it's just coming together so wonderfully.
So I want to touch on that a little bit because you said you were an engineer. Was that a major in college?
That was.
So how did you go from being an engineer and flipping that to being an English major?
I used to be embarrassed about this, but I flunked out. I was that bad at math. And one day I was taking a shower. This was when I was writing plays just for fun for the theater. I was just doing that as a side gig, just as for fun. And I was in the shower when I realized, I'm kind of good at this. People seem to show up. Maybe this is my calling. And when I embraced that, it was like taking a breath for the first time after being held underwater for so long. It was freeing.
Do you have any advice for young writers?
For young writers, read everything. Don't read everything. Read what makes you happy, what lights your soul on fire. School will tell you that only depressing books are worth reading, but I disagree. So find your fantasies, your science fictions, your mysteries, your horrors. Drink them in nonstop. Every night before you go to bed, read a chapter. Read 2 chapters if you can. And just let it wash over you. Be in. Just keep writing what you like. Try and find out. I guess the big thing is try and coax out your creativity. Find out what brings it out. Like I said, you can't just force it. Find out what brings it out. But the big thing I have to say, and I say this with all the sincerity in my heart, is slay your dragons. And what I mean by that is there's going to be everything is going to get in your way for when it comes to writing, whether it be anxiety, depression, or just a general malaise. You have to find a way to slay your dragons. Sometimes they will win the battle, but overall, you need to win the war if you want to be a writer.